Okay, we're going to be restoring a power steering control valve rebuilding. Basically going through on how to inspect all the pieces and parts. So, the first piece I like to look at is this, and a lot of them leak because in the inside here, this piece goes inside of the bore, which this lets the fluid know which way the piston will go. But here on these shafts, on each end, the seals go in here on each end. Well, if they get pit marks in it, it will just pour fluid all over the ground. So you need to make sure it's nice and smooth and there's no pitting or anything like that. That's most important. Usually there's not a whole lot that wears out on these. A big mistake a lot of people make is when on their tie rods in the car rubs spots right here. This one is not wore through, so it's okay, but if they get bad enough, they could. So that's one. Pretty much everything else is pretty much just clean it up, put new seals and stuff. So when we get everything cleaned up, we'll come back and start putting it back together. Okay, we got two parts of the power steering control valve. First, we're going to start with this part that screws onto the center drag link. Alright, then first you're going to grease the inside of the sleeve with some grease. You can tell it's in there. And then you're going to insert the new sleeve or bushing. You're going to push that all the way down to where there's the bigger opening. And then you have the new joint that will go in there. And then you push it all the way in there, and then you take a little bit more grease. Then you have the ball. And you just lay that in there, and then you pull it back this way. And you put the new one in there. Always put a little extra grease on there. And drop it in there. Then you can see both halves of the, basically a ball joint. And then that's done, and then you go to the next. Alright, and then now we're going to insert the spring. This is what keeps the joint tight. You can drop that in there. And you want to make sure you keep that thing pulled back like that. And then you have this special nut that goes in there, and you drop the rod through there. Now we're going to put the rubber washer in, and then the steel washer. And then that threads into the bushing. Okay, then once it gets tight, I have to put it in the vise. Now when you tighten this piece, you want to make sure and pay attention to the round holes that's inside. And you can see there's a notch there, so when it gets tight enough, you don't need it super tight. Make sure you get a good wrench, because there's not much of a flange there for it to turn on. And the tighter you make the nut, the tighter the joint is going to be. So now when you get it tight enough, you see the hole right there. When you disassemble it, there is a round pin, and it just slides in there. And just remember, this rod had a slot in it, so the pin, everything lines up. Once you get it in there, it locks it all together. And you want to make sure this moves freely, because when you turn your steering wheel left to right, That's what tells your piston which way you're turning, so it helps. The power steering assist will go in that direction. Okay, so we're going to start assembling the housing. You need to use Type F transmission fluid and just squirt a little bit in there. And just stick your finger in it. Don't need a whole lot. Just okay, and then it'll just, doesn't matter which way it goes. Slide right in there, just like that. Make sure it slides back and forth freely. Okay, again, make sure you lube the inside just a little bit. There's another little valve that goes in beside the bigger valve. And you just want to wiggle it. There it goes. It goes down in there. Then there's a flat washer. Just drop that down in there. And then one spring. Now, these little caps, there's a large one and a short one. It's very easy to determine which side they go in. If you look, there's a deep side, and then there's a more shallow side. So the deep plug goes in on this side, and then they just go in there just like that. And then make sure you put your new O-rings on the ends, and they just slide right on. Same thing on the other side. Washer, spring, and then the cap. Now the only thing that holds the caps in is when you put the ends on, and then they'll stay in. Okay, and then we move on to the next step. Alright, now we're gonna start assembling the two pieces together. So, and then you get another steel washer which holds the seal in. Very important piece. Then you have a sleeve that goes in there. And it just sits down in there like that. Then you have the other washer, rubber washer. And then here is the other half, which first, almost forgot, have to install the gasket. Then you just drop that right in there. Well, the gasket does not want to cooperate. Okay, and then you have the two bolts. Just a small ratchet. Okay, see, everything moves. Now we're going to start on the back half. Okay, now we're going to assemble the back half of the control valve. So you have the steel plate that goes on there, a washer, and the piece of plastic. And then you have spring, another plastic bushing. Oh. And you have the sleeve, and then the washer. Okay, here we're putting the nut on. You're going to tighten this nut all the way down until it stops. Don't tighten it hard. Okay, and then you're going to back it off 1/8 of a turn. So you're going to wait until it stops and then back it off that much. And you can also look in the Ford manuals, it will show you. Okay, next. O-ring slides down, and then the aluminum cap. Two screws. And there you go, it's pretty much assembled. And just gotta install the dust boot around the joint. And then you have the retainer for the dust boot. And you want to make sure this ball joint's in the center, not left or to the right, to the center.